everyone. Welcome to the Power of Us podcast. I'm your host, Azure Gray, and here we talk about and explore the journey of professionals who have accomplished so much and have the ability to unite both mission and vision, action, in order to create positive change. We're speaking to the best and brightest. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start the conversation. Okay, today we have Jennifer Magley. Now, media consultant. I want to make sure I get all of these. Media consultant, entrepreneur, former pro athlete, keynote speaker, and author. You've been named Woman of the Year by Pass the Torch. What a boss. It is so nice to have you here today. Thank you for making the time.
Oh, happily. This is a thrill. I'm so enjoying the content that you're putting out there. So this is
bless you. That is a compliment that I am thrilled to receive from you. Aww. So you definitely set the standard, which we'll talk about some of that today. So let's start. Your mission is to help successful people become unstoppable. So clearly, I am talking to the right person. Let me ask you, how do you do it? What's the pivotal moment that got you to that? And then how do we take it from an idea to actually fruition?
Yes, I found that no matter what I do, I always end up with the same North Star. So that could be coaching tennis back in the day, to serving tables, to now as chief brand officer of the basketball league. I'm forever asking the same questions, and that's, what can I do to connect you? What's your greatest dream? Who's the best referral for you? So that's something that I feel some folks call it a calling. I don't know what it is. It's just a script I can't get away from. And so that's how I landed on, I help successful people be unstoppable. And now I get to do that through branding. So that's a lot. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, always asking the same questions.
I love it. You've accomplished so much. Various different ways. I mean, we just covered that. What are the biggest challenges you faced along the way, and how did you overcome those? You had to have some.
Gosh, I would say the biggest challenges are when my Maslow's needs are on fire. And that could be anywhere from your personal life, unexpectedly becoming a single mother, to being laid off during a pandemic. I mean, anytime someone's laid off, it's a fancier way of saying fired. So I think the ability to pivot is what served me really well and has continued to be my greatest, we'll call it opportunity, since we're not at pivoting at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, that's my greatest opportunity, is when life throws those curveballs.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons I felt a kindred spirit in you when we first met, because all of those things apply to my life. And I know right now, I'm about not quite 2 years into unexpectedly being a single mom, and trying to manage that along with all of this is a lot. I love everything that I do, but sometimes it's just trying to figure out how do we get everything in? And other times it's, how exactly did I end up here? And what do I do now?
Yeah. And I think that it's the answer to that starts with no. What can I say no to that will free me? So in my case, that meant no more nonprofit boards. I can contribute my time, talent, and treasure, as the board lingo says, in a different way, rather than plugging in and being on a board, because I realized that was taking away from my home life. And I didn't necessarily have that structure set up for me to be able to do the charitable work that I wanted to do. So I think that's the hardest thing, being a primary caregiver, like anyone that's watching this can understand. I sometimes think it's, how can we pare it down rather than how can we expand? Like, saying no is still growth. We're not shrinking by saying no.
That is powerful. I definitely get that. I served on quite a few boards prior to children. Yes. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was in my third trimester with my oldest. She's still with us. She's great. Okay. But it became a little bit much to try and get everything done. And so since then, I think I've served on maybe one board, but learning how to say no, that's that's a big one that a lot of us struggle with, especially the achievers, the perfectionists, right? And somebody who just likes to be in the room, right? So it's hard sometimes to just say, no, I've got to skip that one.
Yeah. And that's this season of the work-life blender. Because everyone says work-life balance. I feel like it's a blender. You throw everything in and you keep it moving. It doesn't last forever. That's what I've heard, but it sure feels like it. I don't know.
I think they're lying to us.
Yeah. They're like, oh, when your kids are grown, then you have more time. I'm like, do you? So
people with adult children tell me not really.
Right. So I'm suspicious. I mean, I'm sure time flies and one day I'll look back and feel like it went faster. But at the moment, it is okay for us to say we feel every single day. Yeah. And there's times that I'll be sitting at our little guy's sports practices, 7, 8, 9 at night, and I can just feel my body just burning, just from all the day, just sitting there. And you're thinking to yourself, when is it ever going to end? You love it. And of course, it's a privilege and an honor. But I don't think enough of us feel that it's okay to talk about the difficulties of being a caregiver and also being a parent, a parent and a professional. So it's very challenging because if it's not your kids, then you're caregiving for somebody else or something else. So we've all got that strain on us. Yeah.
And it's a lot, especially in today's environment. I know I felt it this morning when I got out of bed, and then I felt it again when I got out of the car after I parked here. And I thought, okay, you just got to keep it going. Just keep it going. The alarm goes off at 5. I'm anticipating being home maybe about 8. And I'm thinking, you can do this.
Yes. And also, are you introvert or extrovert?
Are you really asking me this question?
I'm an introvert. People don't know. People don't realize that I am an introvert. So it's hard for me to show up someplace for more than 90 minutes and play me. Because it doesn't give me life to be out and among a lot of other people. So that's the other thing that's really challenging too, is it's like 3, 2, 1, action. I'm going to be on. And then you're on all day. And then the nice thing is, if you're fortunate enough, like a lot of us, to be able to come home to a peaceful home. I think that is something that, we talk about power of us, the ability to recover from all of that hard work. That's crucial. That's been my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm moving. And so I am in the middle of the whole sell and purchase process and all of that. But I'm so excited about the fresh start, about having and the peace that I feel of just a new environment and starting fresh. I absolutely cannot wait. Helping the kids manage the change, but it's definitely something I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. I'll have to come over and bring a glass of wine or something.
Done.
And then we can talk and have the real tea.
Right.
If you want the real tea,
I do. I wish I had any to share. Help me get some.
That would be so fun. That's a different kind of show. Different show.
Okay. So I have to tell you, my daughter, anytime there's something she doesn't really enjoy, she's 9 going on 35, right? And so I refer to her and I let her know, my dear, you are a queen in training, not a princess, because princesses in the stories need someone else to save them. Right. You, my love, are a queen in training. You're on your way. And so I've got to ask the title, How to Be a Queen, the book you authored, and it's about a young professional woman and the power of self-leadership.
Right.
Tell us what you think are the qualities we need to be leaders in today's society, business environment as us. What do we need to do?
Yeah. And then thanks for mentioning that. So I wrote this book, How to Be Queen, a leadership fable, and it's as long and as short as the Cheesecake Factory menu. So you can read it over your lunch break. And I took the tortoise and the hare and I rewrote it. And believe it or not, Azure, this fable is hard to write. It's hard to write a short little book. And the book is really about moving the finish line and how do we allow ourselves to just be without achievement. The question is in the book is, who am I if I don't achieve one more thing? Like, what is really my identity? And it's not even necessarily your identity out of work, but it's an identity outside of completion. I completed that task or I completed this thing. And that's the question that I was hoping to get folks to begin to think about, because everyone around us is moving that finish line like it's never enough. It's never good enough. Like you're like, oh, you did that, now do that, hopping on one leg on a tightrope.
Yes.
So I think that was what, How to Be Queen was all about, is that we all have this intrinsic royalty, this intrinsic worth that, exists outside of the confines of competition and achievement and even hard work. So that was the concept of the book.
Love it. I'm going to actually ask you something not on my list of questions, but in follow up to that. As you mentioned, thinking about not getting things done and who would I be if I accomplished nothing else, but the tightrope and jumping on it. And then you get people that say, you know what? You didn't do that quite right.
That's exactly right.
I know you did this for me, but I wanted 5, not 4. And it's just exhausting. How do you manage that?
Yeah. Growing up, that was a part of my family culture. The way that I was raised is feedback. If you're training to be a professional athlete, your coach will tell you, oh, that's so good for someone else. It's just never, excellence is a bit like the internet. It's a void that's never filled. It's an infinity snake eating itself. So learning to take a moment and accept the wins, I think that's important, but it's hard when you're out there on that tightrope on one foot and you're doing all the things. And on top of it, society says, but you're not smiling. You're not seeming likable, or you're not seeming happy. So I think there's a lot on us, and a wonderful kind of controversial book to consider checking out is On Our Best Behavior. And this book talks about the concept of the 7 deadly sins and how they have policed women into feeling we have to be good, which is a very interesting concept. So for those that are curious, check that book out.
Yeah. I most definitely will. Thank you for sharing.
Long. It's a long book, but it is very fascinating, because I and my culture wasn't raised to be likable. I was raised to perform. I was raised to achieve. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of people in other cultures, and you read the book, and a lot of cultures, they're really being raised to be liked. And I didn't realize that, because I was speak your mind, you show up, you've got to be excellent. So I had to perform more than I had to be liked. And then it was a very shocking reality check to learn, oh no, you need to be liked. This is what these folks in corporate America are wanting.
I remember a conversation with my father about this very thing. I was in maybe 5th grade. And I said, I get the feeling when I behave this way with these people, they like me. Mm-hmm. And then with these people, I need to behave this way in order for them to like me. And he leaned in and he said, you know what, let me tell you something. Anytime that you are someone other than yourself and you continue to do that, you'll forget who you really are. And that stuck with me. It gave me some strength in those moments where I really wanted to be liked.
Well, right?
It's not true to myself. And
the hard thing about that is, we've got a middle schooler too. He said, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to fit in. And I'm like, honey, you're never going to fit in. Mm-hmm. This is what it is, but you can belong. You're never going to fit in. This is narcissistic, but I'm like, you're too unique. And not every single person looks like you or talks like you or is your same size, but it's about your kindness. So it's an interesting thing growing up with this kind of standard that other folks expect of us, the way we speak and the way that it's colored, no pun intended.
Yeah.
With all of that.
Right.
The non-PC, way of saying it. And alternating between different opportunities. I did a voiceover for a really big brand here recently, and I loved it. And one of the interesting things that I noticed about myself was they said, oh, well, just, speak relaxed, like you're talking to a friend. And I never realized that the way that I talk to my friends is either this way or it's has more of an ethnicity to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was interesting is, although I knew how to show up professionally as the mainstream, I don't know how to be mainstream casual. I'm like, I don't even own any khaki pants. I don't know.
I don't either. Is that a thing?
Right. So I'm either I'll talk to my mom like this, but you might hear like a girl, or can you believe this?
Mm-hmm.
Or mind you, there's certain catchphrases that will make my diction more relaxed. But I hadn't realized till I did that gig that I actually don't have a casual persona that is mainstream. Isn't that interesting?
Honestly, I could feel that about you. And I definitely know what you mean by that. That's
my gosh.
My queen in training. We have the same kinds of conversations, and it's definitely you're too unique to just fit in. I mean, everyone in the neighborhood knew who she was when she was 2. And I've never been Azure there. I'm Lachlan's mom.
Right. And also we're with the power of us. I think the power is being ourselves, but the filter that we allow that to come out through.
Right.
And can you handle that? Can the other person handle, but is it smooth?
Right.
Because then, maybe they let down and they're comfortable, but then they say something and you're like, cringe. Yeah. So I think there's a lot and a lot of layers to being ourselves. And we have to feel safe in that environment, because a lot of times the casual me is sounds a lot like the professional me, even if I'm at drinks, with the company.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's can they handle it is a very good question. And sometimes, I know I've had those situations, I'm guessing you have too, where you found, they can't handle that. I need to just keep it here with you. And that's...
Right. This is it. This is it. And this is why we're introverted, right?
This is how much we'll interact and what the types of topics we will and won't discuss together. Absolutely.
It's an interesting thing.
Now, I promised we'd talk about personal brand. You have a very established personal brand. What advice would you give to those that are uncertain? Where do I start in terms of building a successful personal brand?
Gosh, I used to not be a social media person. I might have a certificate somewhere as the last human being on earth that joined Facebook. But I was terrified to be on social media. So folks that are afraid to use their voice are typically afraid of these two things, I would say. I would say one of being seen, really not flying above the radar, because everyone just wants to keep their head down because maybe they think something makes them different. Or 2, being perceived as a narcissist. They don't like that people always post about themselves. So what helped me get over this, because I was that person who fell into 1 and 2, was a friend of mine said, well, what's in your closet, Jennifer? I said, all of my things. He pushed me a little more. He said, like what? My clothes, my shoes, my wigs, my jewelry, like all my things. He said, exactly. Social media is your closet online. And when people are coming to your page or subscribing or following you, they're expecting content about you. Mm-hmm. And that just freed me, Azure. That just freed me, because I finally said, okay, well, if this is acceptable for me to post about myself, then I'm going to do it. And I would say, to help inspire people that are stuck, we need to know the people before we need them. Mm-hmm. On period. Mm-hmm. So I use social media as a tool of a proof of life. I'm still here every day. I'm doing this every day. Look at me. And if I'm fortunate enough, look at them. Right. Mm-hmm. And if I am not my biggest fan, who will do it for me?
No one.
Right. Yes. And that's what I believe is no one knows your name. Let's change that. So posting every single day, whether it's a photo or a video or opinion about someone else or your own experience, nobody can say your experience is wrong. So that's a great place to start, is sharing about your own experience, because who's going to slide in and be a troll and tell you your experience isn't valid?
Oh, they manage. Let's be honest.
The trolls don't really come for me on LinkedIn. They know I don't know, maybe I'm too spicy. I was just like, oh, I know where you work. Let's go.
I think it's maybe just, it's intimidation.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But it's funny, Azure, people don't realize I'm as big as I am. I'm like 5'11". And when I meet people in real life, because I do a lot of content, they thought I was like this little petite, powerhouse pack. And when I come in with this, the big bitch steppers, like they are not these size 10.5 men's shoes. They are not expecting all that. So I also think that it's a great equalizer, content is, because you're only this big. Who's afraid of somebody this big?
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing is scale. They can't really tell what the back of your head looks like. They can't tell how tall you are. They don't know what you're working with under this blazer.
Yeah. So what are you wearing from the waist down, right?
Doesn't even matter. So it is a safer place. It is a safer place to begin to test the waters and put ourselves out there. Because if we don't advocate for us, who's going to do it?
Absolutely. I know. And it's funny you say that, because I was comfortable with the concept of social media as I started to get out and do it. But I wanted to talk about these things. Mm-hmm. And okay, so tell me about you. And that is something that I am working on, my ability to be vulnerable. And it's very challenging for me. Part of it maybe is some of what we discussed from childhood and in the professional world as well. And I think part of it too is just because I'm an extrovert, not an introvert, I get my energy from being around other people, and I don't want the mood to be uncomfortable. I think it's just a fear of vulnerability. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress.
Let me tell you. Okay. So that used to be me, right? Like, recovering perfectionist, people pleaser. We're going to present everything as ideal, as the best case scenario. And then I got laid off. And the reason why I have so many connections on LinkedIn is because I've had a couple viral moments. And it was the first time when I was laid off at the beginning of the pandemic that I shared the truth that the only loan I had ever qualified for was my kids' piggy bank while they slept at night. And I laid it all out there, Azure, and it went viral, like over 10 million views. People saw it. And I realized two things. Vulnerability is what people want. People want to see our flaws. People want to realize I'll get on a stage and I tell them the truth at a women's group. I'll be like, hey, I was so excited. I shaved my arms, I shaved my legs, and I shaved my face this morning. And the room will explode. I'm like, that's right. I'm over 40, but I've been shaving my face for years because I have PCOS, and a lot of women have PCOS, but no one talks about that. Yeah. And it's a hormone disease. Mm-hmm. So I think that when we lead and we make ourselves human online, it is powerful. And that's what actually connects, because everyone is tired of the shiny. Everyone's tired of the perfect. But we want to know, like, hey, what are you really overcoming? Yeah. And on the other side, LinkedIn is what I call a trauma porn space. It delivers, and the algorithm loves a photo of a dog or someone in a hospital or something dramatic. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, it's just people click on it and LinkedIn loves it. So there's not much to lose when we share our actual real life experience.
That's good advice. I will definitely, I will keep that in mind and take that.
One more thing on that.
Yeah.
My story coach that helped me with How to Be Queen, she actually has worked on films. She's given a wonderful TED Talk. Her name's Lisa Cron. And in her book, she's got 2. She says, plot is what happens to us. Story is how it changes us.
Ooh.
So if plot is what happens, and that's what a lot of people struggle with, these awful things have happened to me. Mm-hmm. How do I talk about them? Well, we don't necessarily need to talk about the plot. We need to talk about how it changed us. So when we know that normal, explosion, new normal, like that Donald Miller story brand, mm-hmm. normal, explosion, new normal, then that's the framework where we can begin to talk about the difficult things that are sometimes in that gray area.
I love that. I'm trying to remember, I think it was Andrea Butcher, who here locally was on stage once, and she said it's the messy middle, right? Yeah. And I was at that time, I was in the thick of the messy middle. Yeah. I've been in it for a year and a half and I had another year and a half to go.
Right.
But it is so nice to be coming out of the messy middle, and to remember that you're either going in it
right.
or coming out. And then here we go again. It is the plot. That's the plot.
I can't wait, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the algorithms, and we're talking about personal brand. How do I know when I'm doing well? How do I know if I've done a good job with it?
So I am in the LinkedIn space, and LinkedIn is awful. And the reason why LinkedIn is awful is because they don't innovate. All right. Like, this platform is not going to reward video. They're trying. They're like doing new things. So here's how you can like stand out. You can stand out on LinkedIn because it's awful.
Do tell.
Yeah.
Not that I would care, right? So
just being consistent. Yeah. Just showing up every day, posting between 8 and 9:30. Mm-hmm. And the consistency is what's going to grow your audience. Mm-hmm. Now, here's an interesting fun fact about LinkedIn. We can't really judge our success on our content on LinkedIn by engagement or likes.
Right.
Because everyone that's on there probably isn't supposed to be on there during the day. And so if they like your content, mm-hmm. Then their coworkers are going to know that they're on LinkedIn looking for another job. If you post something controversial, they might send it to their coworker and be like, this reminds me of the meeting we were just in, mm-hmm. but they're not going to like it or comment.
Yeah.
So I think it's to kind of level set in regards to success and what we're doing right on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Consider looking at the analytics of your delivery. What are the impressions? Because that's going to tell the real story. So don't be discouraged if you post on LinkedIn and no one's liking or engaging with the content. It's really not the place for that. That's what I would say as a normal person. I'm not Gary Vee. Right. I'm not like any of these other guys. Mm-hmm. I'm not. But I would say for a professional or entrepreneur, just be encouraged knowing that you're being consistent. And then most importantly, have a call to action. If we don't have a call to action, and it doesn't have to be connected to what you just posted. I love to do a little 5 stars or, 5 asterisks. And then I always say, DM me if you're looking for an MC for your next event. DM me if you have a company who's looking to partner with a professional basketball league in 38 different markets or has a bigger geographical footprint than the NBA. So if we don't have a call to action, people are just going to see your content and they're not going to know what to do. They're just going to say, oh, great.
Yeah, that was fun. But what is it you'd like me to do with it, or even to guide them? Because otherwise, sometimes I'm just taking it in, right? Sometimes it's just some fun stuff.
It really works when we put a call to action, and we can do that on other platforms. I'm not as well versed in TikTok. Instagram, I just use as a video editor for my videos for LinkedIn.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
I have to admit, I don't Facebook, and TikTok and LinkedIn are kind of my thing. LinkedIn is so professional. Fun, TikTok is my relaxation and just kind of peering through the window. That's when I like to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you share an experience where you had to make a tough choice or decision that wasn't popular with your organization or with your family, but you knew it was best? How did that go?
Yeah, that is a great question. I'll clear my throat for this one. Okay. Back when I was a wee young girl, I was
knee-high to a grasshopper. Okay.
Yes, I was the youngest Division I head coach, NCAA Division I head coach in the country. Every single day, I had to make decisions that were unpopular, controversial, and it made for a hard life. I think if you've got to always draw the line in the sand or actually say this is the standard, it's one thing to do that. It's another to enforce that standard every single day. So it was hard as an emerging professional to be put in a position of leadership with folks that maybe didn't understand where I came from, that criticism and feedback was like a love language in my family, as I've said. So if I'm saying, hey, like, you need to do this well, why don't you go work on this an hour by yourself if you really want it? That was me caring about them. Knowing what I know now, I probably would have done some things differently, but I don't know if it would have made a difference because of the culture of tennis and the way that folks have paid coaches ever since they were little. They've been on the kids' payroll.
Yeah.
So to go from that to a scholarship athlete where the coach is like, aha,
you're not special here.
Yeah. And probably at that time was like, ha ha ha, like just like that. So I think that was the most challenging job. So I was like an associate head coach, then I was a head coach for 5 years. And that was the most challenging thing. So did they have the best grades in the university? Yes. Did we do the most community service? Yes. Did we raise nearly, the highest amount of money for a non-revenue sport? Yes. Was I liked? No. So that's really hard. And I learned through that. And I have some players that would say, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. And I have some players that I am the villain, probably still to this day. And that's the hard thing, Azure, is that in life, everyone else is the casting director for their life. They're the main character. So in films, a lot of time they'll have actors come in to read for roles, and they can see who the antagonist is by reading for the protagonist. I'm trying to be, the protagonist, but you just cast me as the villain. So sometimes we're going to be the villain in people's stories. And so that's hard. As somebody who wants to be a pleaser, that was hard. And those decisions led to me being the villain, which fast forward now to being 40. And that still happens with other adults now. If I've tried everything I can do to not be the villain, but you still want me to be the villain, that's when I say, oh, I can be a better villain. So
I can do it well. Yes. Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about BVE, the big villain energy,
Sometimes it feels good.
Yeah, it's okay to be the villain. And it's okay if you don't want to be the villain and you still are. We are not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Right. So I think that's the other thing. It's just accepting it. Like, hey, I'm the villain. Like, and then you have to say, what would the villain do in this situation rather than getting the loop of, I want to please you. I want everything to be okay. I want to, whether it's your personal life or professional life. So it helps. You go in a meeting, this person, they don't care for you. Address it.
Yeah.
Hey, I know in your world, I'm kind of the villain. How can we work together? So I think just saying it out loud is helpful.
Yeah.
Not popular to hear, but helpful to talk about.
And we don't necessarily have to like each other. We simply have to find a way in order to accomplish the objectives, communicate and work together to get to where we need to go. And at the end of the day, it's absolutely fine that we don't have lunch together. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's hard. It is a hard thing. And the reason why I mentioned the BVE is because making hard decisions leads us to being the villain. And a lot of times we don't want to do that because we're fighting on so many other fronts. And it just depends on the enlightenment or lack thereof of the other person. Are they enlightened enough to be able to have cognitive dissonance and separate you from the actions? And not everybody there, not everybody want to be there. So, villain it is.
If you're going to do it well. Bring it, right? So, I'd like to ask, I have a question that I like to ask of all of my guests at the end, because I think it provides a lot of insight into where you are right now after we've heard a lot about your journey of what brought you here. So what lesson, whether it was learned recently or long ago, is serving you most at this point in your life?
What lesson is serving me most? I'd have to say, when you know your worth, you find out how much you have in common with those around you. For example, if we don't know our worth, even in a partnership in the real world, we may find people that are matching how we view ourselves. And in my case, I have been in partnership with folks in my past or a person, and I thought we had a lot in common. But when I learned my worth, I realized actually we don't have that much in common because I know how I deserve to be treated. And I think that's true for a lot of people, is even with jobs, maybe we'll never get paid. Everyone's not paid, what we should be, or maybe we don't have the freedom. But if you know my worth, then the cost will come accordingly. So knowing our worth and learning that sometimes can change our lives in really big ways, because fundamentally you realize people and organizations, we just don't align. We just don't have it in common anymore.
Yeah.
So I would say that lesson has really transferred across my personal life to my professional life, as you start to realize, the line is here.
I think I found that professionally before I found it personally. And I think because, again, that had always been the conversation, the objectives and the goals, the feedback had always been about school, then my career, right? And those were the topics. But as soon as I reached that point, and also I have some things to overcome, some of those big booms, right? That you just realize this is more energy than this isn't a reciprocal relationship. I had 3 bridesmaids in my wedding. I still speak to one of them. And you just kind of reach that point where you realize that this isn't it's even okay to just say, you know what? I'm going ahead and giving you notice. I'm leaving. I wish you the best in your life, all the success, all the great things, but I'm no longer going to be a part of it because of of what I'm receiving for all sorts of various different reasons.
And we grow. We grow, and there's seasons of change. And even those, like you're mentioning, those adult friendships are so challenging because of the attrition with adult friendships with other women. It's a lot. And it's something that we're just now starting to talk about. Like I hear Michelle Obama talk about friendship and the importance of it. Melinda Gates has a new show. She's talking about it with Oprah and Gail. And I think it's something that's been under-celebrated and underrepresented, is the importance of friendship, and at the same time the attrition of friends each year because of the heavy caregiving or growth or lack thereof. So yes, the worth part and the expectations, communicating that, and then realize like, oh, you don't see me, because if you did, I don't think you would have done that.
You see me and you just don't care.
Right. So we don't have anything in common anymore.
Right.
And I think that is totally enough to change our lives. We don't have to wait till a partner mistreats us. We don't have to wait till that boss cusses us out yet again. We don't have to do those. We don't have to wait. Like my mama always says, you don't have to wait till they mess up to break up with them. If this is what it is, you can break up with your job, you can break up with your friend, just keep it moving.
Yes.
So I think that's been my biggest lesson, is knowing our worth.
Yes. The phrases, keep it pushing on my end. So yes, I definitely know what you mean. And I think it's one of those things that 40, I used to have a fear of turning 40. Oh my goodness, it's been lovely. It was a while ago. Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm a little older than you. But one of the
it just happened.
beautiful things about it is really, you do receive a certain amount of freedom of just, you start to know who you are a little better. And even the parts that you don't love as much about yourself, you embrace them. And then it raises your standard. I call it a low tolerance for bullshit.
There you go. That threshold is low. And like I really believe like nobody can fail like me. Like that's a unique, if I'm going to bomb, let's cannonball, let's like go all in. And every time before I hit a stage, like I'll be on the rally stage, tech conference here. I'll be on the stepping out in style stage at the JW. I'm sweating bullets. I'm terrified before I go on stage to MC. But I just think, even if it doesn't go well, at least they'll remember me.
He's gonna look good, right?
Hey, like I'm not perfect because Azure, the odd thing is scientists say we only remember the days where unusual things happen. So in my mind, if I'm an unusual thing in your day, like even going back to content, if that content isn't perfect or if it's unusual, it may be more memorable to people rather than all buttoned up and perfect all the time. So let this free you.
I love it.
Nobody's really paying that much attention to us.
And I love the fact that getting to know you better has made me enjoy you even more over time. So it helps me with my vulnerability to think, okay, because I want to be like Jennifer when I grow up. So
you're super. Girl, you are all the things. I'm loving your content, and
thank you.
And everybody has to know, like, look, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Just this is kind of like junk mail for a lot of people. You get it and you throw away.
Yeah.
And if it sticks, great. If not, it's the personal growth of creating content, of having to communicate that message.
Exactly.
That's the journey.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's worth it.
Perfect note to end on. I agree. It's absolutely worth it. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for joining us. We are The Power of Us, where we talk to people about their journey and find out the best and brightest how they got to where they are. So I'm Azure Gray, and that's all for today.